Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and so excited to share these with you guys. I have been wanting to ink up all these images from the Simon Says Stamp Funny Food stamp set. Since I got them, I did a video when this set was released using just the donut image and combining it with another set from Simon. But I've been wanting to use all of the images because they all have coordinating punny little sentiments and everything. So I took a piece of Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock and I put it in my Misty. And then I just arranged all the images onto the cardstock and then closed the lid of my Misty. And this gives me the opportunity to stamp them all at once. Plus I can multiple stamp them because I did miss areas when I stamped all these. So I can ink them up again, close the lid of my Misty, stamp it again, and end up stamping it a third time just to get everything stamped perfectly. So once I've got everything inked up and stamped, I let this ink, I find actually lately with almost all inks, even Copic friendly ones, like this is a Copic friendly ink. MFT's Hybrid Black Licorice is a Copic friendly ink. Memento Tuxedo Black ink is Copic friendly, but I'm finding I either need to like heat set them or just give them a little tiny bit to dry, not very long, to prevent smearing, but especially if I'm double or triple stamping, because obviously you're using more of the ink, so it needs some time to dry. So I let it dry. And then I'm going in with my Copic markers, and I just super sped this up. I kept the coloring pretty simple, but I did include all the colors on the screen here, but I will also have a picture on my blog where I wrote out all the colors I used. And I just went along and colored all of these images. I used 2 to 3 colors on average for all of it. With the little watermelon, it was kind of an afterthought to add the little like kind of mottled green look because the rind, it looks like that. And I was so glad I did because I was like, ooh, I like how that just turned out. And then same with the pizza. I was like, oh, this is cheese, so I'm not going to color it. I'm going to just like kind of blob the color on. And I liked how that turned out too. And I did the same thing with the pepperoni. I just colored in the red and then I blobbed on some of the E19, to give it that sort of look, and then colored in the crust. And then I went in and did the donut here and just colored the base of the donut first. And then I went in and colored the glaze. And with the glaze, because these 3 colors, especially the 66 and the 63, there's kind of a fairly large difference between the colors. When you're trying to blend colors like that and you're finding they're not blending very well, what I was doing was taking the 63, which is the lighter color, and picking up some of the 66 from the marker there to help blend them together. So did that, and then I went on to do the little slice of bread, and from the minute I saw this image, I was like, he's got to have some jelly on him. You don't want just plain piece of bread. So I scribbled on some of the V09, and I lightened it up in areas with V06, and it technically covers the face completely, but I'm going to go over that again with a pen to make it stand out. And I've seen other people go over it with a white gel pen, which also works really, really well. So once I was done all my coloring, I also added some pink to the ones that had little cheeks, and I'd forgot the little piece of bread's feet, but I will get to that in a minute. And then to emphasize their faces, I'm using the new Pilot, or new to me, the Pilot envelope addressing pen that I showed in my recent haul. Love this. This is the first time I've actually officially used it, but I already love it. It worked so well to darken the lines. Now you can see the faces just kind of pop. So I did that, and then I grabbed my white gel pen just to add some little highlights and some definition to all these images, and it just made everything pop even more. So I added just little dots to the cheeks and little bits of highlights here and there and just little elements. I went along the rind of the watermelon piece here and just added little bits to that as well, and then went along and added highlights to the jelly here, which it just made everything it just finished it off. So once I was done with all of my highlighting, I grabbed the coordinating dies, and I'm going to tape all of these into place with some micropore tape. You could use painter's tape or even just regular tape, as long as you don't tape over the image. But I just like the micropore tape because it's convenient and it removes cleanly. And then I remembered to fill in the feet on that little piece of bread there. So got all the dies taped into place so that I can run this through in one pass through my die cut machine, and they'll all die cut at once. So I wanted to make sure I had everything lined up because that's the last thing you want after all that coloring is to them crooked. So once I had all of them die cut, I was planning on making these into tags, and I wasn't originally planning on using Distress Oxide inks on these, but I've had so many people asking me about them, and they're still sitting right in front of me on my desk, so I was like, I need to find a way to incorporate some Distress Oxide ink. So I had all these craft tags that I was planning on using, and pulled out the Broken China Distress Oxide ink. And again, this is the only one I've used so far. This is the first time using it, but I'm already in love with these inks. They blend on so nice, and look how awesome it shows up against like craft cardstock. It's so nice. And because these are more of a pigment style ink, they just go on so smoothly. They blend so easily. Like, I was putting in zero effort here. I just picked up the ink with my blending tool and started in the center and just kind of worked my way out. Wasn't trying very hard, but just got some ink down. So it shows up so nicely. And then of course, once I was done adding ink to all these tags, I had to spritz it to see what it was going to do. So because Distress inks react with water, and the Oxide inks do as well, they just react differently. So I lined them all up and I spritzed them with my Distress sprayer and let it sit for about 30 seconds or so, maybe a little bit longer. And because this is dark cardstock, it looks totally different right now because all the craft cardstock is darker with the water. So I took my heat tool and dried everything to see how this would turn out. And this also helps to dry that ink as well. And you get this really fun look. I need more time to play with these inks, but already I zero regret getting them. I showed them in my haul video. I got the whole set. And I do plan on, whenever they do release more colors, of course, I'm going to get them all. But anyway, I dried all the ink. And then I grabbed this diagonal stripe pattern paper. This is from the MFT Dots and Stripes Neutral 6x6 paper. I was going to do, black and white, but I, one, kind of tend to hoard my black and white paper. And two, I thought just the lighter color would look a little bit better to let the images kind of pop. So I trimmed down some pieces of this and then started figuring out how I was going to lay out each image and each sentiment onto each tag, because that would kind of determine exactly where I was going to place this pattern paper. So I would just add adhesive to the pattern paper, lay it onto the tag, and then I just flip the tag over and trim off the excess. So I went through and did this every step at once. This is kind of how, when I would do mass producing or any sort of project like this where you're doing multiples, I do all the same steps at once. So I did all the stamping at once, I did all the coloring at once, I did all of the ink blending at once. Now I'm doing all the pattern paper at once. It just makes things go a lot faster and a lot smoother. So once I was done applying all that pattern paper, I decided to line up all these tags in my mini Misty this time. It doesn't really matter which one you use, but I just happened to grab this one because it was the next day I was making it. So grab my mini Misty so I can line up the sentiments. And the one for the donut, I had already cut apart when I did that previous card. So I decided to just use it cut apart rather than bump it back up together because it just was cute that way anyway. So I lined it up on the tag and then pressed it down the lid with the mini Misty, and then I can ink up these sentiments with my VersaFine Onyx Black ink and then stamp them onto the tag. And having it all lined up if I needed to restamp it, which a couple times I did, that way I've got everything lined up and I can restamp it with zero effort whatsoever. So once I got all of my sentiments stamped into place, I pulled everything out of my Misty, set it all aside, and then went on to adhering all these little images to the tags. And I did that with some just bits of foam tape that I cut down so that they're all popped up a little bit. And then I die cut some red cardstock with the Simon Says Stamp Mini Hearts set of dies. And I had some scraps of cardstock, so I die cut way more than I needed. And I just lined up the little hearts. I just did a little sprinkle of 3 different sizes of hearts on each of these tags. And once I was happy with all of that, I just used my crystal katana to pick up the hearts and then adhered them into place with little dabs of my Ranger Multi-Medium matte adhesive. And once those were adhered and I just let them sit for a minute to dry, I took all those extra hearts and I just put them back in the sleeve that I keep the die set stored in, because these little hearts take up no space, and most of the time when I want to use a heart, I want a red one anyway. So I stuck those back in the package. And then for the tops of the tags, I grabbed some of my doodle twine from my stash that I've had forever and decided to do different colors for every single tag to kind of coordinate with the images. So I cut down 3 pieces of twine, and then you see me thread it through there, and then I threaded the ends through. Super, super simple, super easy. And then as a final touch to completely finish these off, I took my Glossy Accents, and my little mini Glossy Accents bottle has the same fine tip applicator that I have for my Ranger Multimedia Matte. And this just enables me to get in and like apply this with a lot more detail and a lot more precision. So I applied Glossy Accents to all of the little die cut hearts, and that finished off all these fun little tags. So you could totally add these to a card if you wanted, or just add this to a gift, give it as is, because you could write on the back, whatever works. These were so fun to make, and these images are so cute, and I'm totally in love with the Distress Oxide inks already. So yeah, this was a really fun project. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And as always, I will have links below the video to my blog post with links to all of the supplies used. All that info will be in the description box below the video. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribing, thumbs upping, and commenting on my videos, and I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye!